Does it really need an introduction at this point? It's Sonichu.
My brain is plastic, sugar-coated magic, twisted and turning and burning for you. My brain is plastic, flimsy and it's tragic. You always said that misery was built for two.
The cover to Sonichu 7 depicts an anthropomorphic dog, apparently descending from heaven on a beam of light, like Mr. Bean. Last time, the city of Quickville was under the terror, or Mary Lee Walsh. Christian, Crystal, and the Electric Hedgehogs battled with her squad of jerkops and giant cad chef. The pretty soldier, Sailor Megtoon, and Majiji showed up in the nick of time to help. Just as Chris Chan was about to finish the witch, she turned the tables, and now she has Crystal in her clutches. Stay tuned to see who will triumph in Part 2, Episode 14, Evil is Afoot. Chris Chan, if you ever want your sister back, you and your crew will bow down to me and surrender your hearts and souls upon my clutches. Ha 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 ha! Wait. Stop. Okay, let's examine for a second here. Exactly what is she asking of them? What would constitute surrendering their hearts and souls? What would it look like, and why does she want it? So far, her goal has just been to stop Christian from finding a girlfriend. Does she want him to give up on his love quest? Because, he could just lie and say that he'll stop, and then Crystal would be free and Mary's whole raid would have been a waste of time. Honestly, none of this shit matters anyway. It's just cliche villain yammering Christian put in there without consideration for things like what words mean. Because Christian learned everything he knows about writing fiction from shitty Saturday morning cartoons. Here, Megan is holding her guitar like a lollipop, presumably in an attempt to hide her face from the camera. Then, Mary Lee Walsh's cheeks inflate like a chipmunk, and she's knocked off her broom by a flying croissant. A tractor beam snatches the dark mirror. Behold the power of the inspired knight, says Darkbind Sonichu, if you remember him. He was the combination of Link from Zelda and Darkwing Duck.
Can you imagine a more random combination of characters? I can. I'd like to introduce to you the new member of the Chaotic Combo. He's a cross between Optimus Prime and Ron Jeremy. I call him Schlongtimus Primachu. He zaps to the extreme all over your face.
Behold the power of the well-trusted dog.
Okay, so I'm going to have to explain Patty the dog. While the material I'm about to cover actually opens issue 6, I didn't want to start the video off with it, since the following segment is going to be mostly discussion, and because, well, let me explain.
Sonichu 6 actually opens with episode 12.5, One Lucky Dog. It doesn't really fit into the rest of the Sonichu narrative, because it isn't supposed to. Shortly before work on Sonichu 6, Chris's dog Patty was put down. He'd raised Patty from a puppy, and she'd been his closest friend for 18 years. At the time, Chris had never encountered death before, and he was absolutely devastated. Episode 12.5 is his way of dealing with the loss of Patty, or more accurately, not dealing with it. I've mentioned before that Chris has difficulty distinguishing reality and fiction. If some of the things he said truly do reflect his worldview, then he appears to believe that all fiction exists in parallel universes. The point being that, like with the sub-episodes, Chris uses the comic here in a play to rewrite history. Patty transcends reality into fiction, where she can live forever in Quickville. I can't honestly decide if it's sweet or just pitiful. Some have described the writing of this comic as the only truly altruistic thing that Chris has ever done, but I think that puts way too much stock in Chris's belief in his Roger Rabbit cosmology. Chris wrote 12.5 for his own benefit, not Patty's. Not that that makes it bad or selfish, it's just a part of his grieving process, and that's why I just don't have the heart to make fun of it. The only specific thing I'd like to draw attention to is this, page 12. Here, we see Christian hugging Patty before he has to leave her to do his mayoral duties. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only time Chris has ever depicted himself being physically affectionate other than in the context of romance. People often scoff at Chris being distraught at the loss of Patty, but I see no reason to doubt that he loved her like she really was family to him. Despite all the awful shit he's done, episode 12.5 is the best evidence that exists that Chris truly is capable of love. Which is why it's just a little discordant that Chris follows that up with an ad for his album. Attention fans, are you ready to rock? Yeah! Good. Now you can groove to the inspired tunes of Christian Chandler, Sonichu, and the band on their debut CD, Christian and the Hedgehog Boys. Dance and listen to the messages of So Need a Cute Girl.
Tell me why I'm stuck as a virgin with rage. Tell me why I so need a cute girl my age. Tell me why I ain't never wanna hear you say I have a boyfriend.
Feel so lonesome. And have fun with La Cocina en la Casa de Casanova.
Estamos en la cocina en la casa de Casanova.
Yellow is a mellow color.
Yellow is a mellow color. Yes it is, it's a mellow color. Sonichu sits beside me. Hey, mellow color.
And more sweet tracks jam with as well. So don't delay, get a copy today. I'm just glad Chris didn't try to make a song to like eulogize Patty or something.
Oh, shit. Oh. Did you know my name? If I saw you in Quickville.
Anyway, back in the actual comic, our heroes effortlessly defeat Mary Lee Walsh. However, Crystal is still trapped. Back at the mayor's office, the characters chat amongst themselves about what just happened. Patty sort of explains that Crystal is now trapped within her sphere. I think she means that weird baton thing. Sonichu remarks, I had this dream that I was seeing my father with long hair in the mirror, which makes Rosachu think to herself, aw, my sweet bolt is so stressed, I can tell from his shaky knee.
That's his Parkinson's.
Darkbind remembers his search for crystal balls, which will free Zelina Rosachu, which is the most minor subplot in this entire comic, and it's about to set up the driving motivation for the main plot. I'm afraid it doesn't look good for Crystal, Magi-chan says. That love-hating witch did a real number. No, says Sonichu. This is the worst. She made it about as hard as Chris's dream ever coming true.
Damn, I think Chris just owned himself.
Sweet Bolt, I'm just as worried as you, and it looks very bad, but I'm certain there's a way to free Crystal, so there's no need for such a bombastic tone. Speaking of bombs, wasn't Bionic just Toatly da bomb at his last b-ball game? Bionic the Hedgehog. If I wasn't kicked off the team for Musu of Vinyl Defense, I could have easily broken his record, and I could have had the ladies for my choice. You're likely wondering who the fuck Bionic the Hedgehog is, and unfortunately, you don't get to find out till next week. But don't worry, it's very disappointing. Ladies. At one time, I thought strength impressed them greatly, but they would rather date a man with a sport ball than one of iron glory. Sheesh, Magaji says. Boys can get so darn jealous when they can't ever find themselves a pretty girl to be with. In rare cases, it gets so bad that the one jealous man can detest 99.999999999% of the worldwide male population, excluding himself and those within the margin of error.
The following is the list of males that Christian does not hate. I did not make this up. He released this list on his personal wiki, the Wikipedia, not to be confused with the Quickie. Number 1, Chris himself. Number 2 is his father. Number 3 is Santa Claus, spelled like the title of the Tim Allen movie. Number 4 is Jesus. Number 5 is God. Number 6 is the President of the United States. Not necessarily a specific president, just whoever happens to hold the office. Ex officio occupies number 6 on this list. Number 7 is all the world leaders, who are in fact more than one person. And number 8, all male acquaintances and friends past and present. That obviously including multiple people, including some who are hypothetical.
Then, Patty says a whole lot of shit that doesn't make any sense together as a coherent thought. Magaji, not all men are like that. For a time, Chris was one of those cases. Since he met Megan, his eyes were reopened and his heart made a miraculous recovery. Yet during his 25 years on this earth, he's been kind and sweet at heart. He's the coolest. I think you should know that by the time Chris sat down to write this, Megan had been spending the last few months telling Chris she didn't want a relationship, asking him to back off, backing out of planned meetups, and getting him to buy her Nazi memorabilia on the internet. But he's still clinging to this notion that she's his soulmate, despite all evidence to the contrary. On the next page, Magi-chan lets us know about the new plot coupons Chris needs to free Crystal. More importantly, we've tried every spell, trap, Pokepower, and trainer abilities we had, as well as every attack we could muster, but it was no use. However, we did come to a conclusion that the only thing that weakened the glass a bit was the power of the Crystal Sonichu Ball. Out of 7 we had on hand, we still need the power of all 7 to pull Crystal out of the Dark World. Similarly, if we cannot acquire the 7 Crystal Sonichu Balls, the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds should open the portal as well. Magi-chan holds out the Sonichu Ball. Don't ask where it came from, we just have one of those now. And the crystal balls Darkbind is holding on to begin to vibrate. And then maybe the best line in Sonichu happens. Darkbind realizes what's happening and he says, "My 2 balls. Why do these crystals have to attract each other? I cannot be deprived of my balls." It turns out that Darkbind has been hunting the Sonichu balls the entire time, because they also hold the power to wake up Zelda. Zelina Rosachu. We flash back to Darkbind and Zelina's romance, and learn that it was cut short by a spell from the evil wizard Claudorf, who is here depicted as a 2-armed penis penetrating an asshole surrounded by Greek columns. Then, suddenly, there is a powerful boom downstairs in the mall. Something's happening downstairs. Sonichu, Magi-chan, come with me. Everybody else, sit here and do nothing.
I'm going to end the review here on this cliffhanger, because I'm a dick, and because we're about halfway through issue 6. See, around here, Christian realized that splitting an issue up into arbitrary episodes didn't make any sense, and so moving forward he starts to condense them, sort of. You'll understand later. And yes, this is the only quantifiable way in which Christian will ever improve the comic. I'm DStecks, and until next week, this has been a bad review.